I'm rewatching the fight. I had to say something. I had to say something. Yo, it's been a minute since I've been on here. Once again, it's your man 100 Grand Ross with the Rock Never Stops. Coming to you with another video. We've got to talk about this Terrence Bud Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. This was an epic fight. This was one for the ages. Probably the greatest fight that we've seen, probably since Floyd and Pacquiao. But if I'm honest, probably have to go back further. Probably have to go back further. Maybe Floyd versus what's his name? Oh shit, I can't even think of his name, but his name don't even matter anymore. What's his name? Golden Boy, right? Uh, look. Let me just say this. Let me just say this. I'm trying to think of all the right ways to put it. What Terrence Bud Crawford did was absolutely phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. He's the type of talent where I respect his entire approach. For those who know me and my channel, you know that I don't really rock with anybody who doesn't respect their sport. Like, if you're out here, if you're a basketball player and you're not in love with the game, I'm not really following you. I don't really care, right? If you're a fighter and you don't have respect for the game, I don't really rock with you. When I see a Terrence Bud Crawford, I see Kobe, I see Jordan, I see I see LeBron, I see the greats, I see Ali, I see Floyd. When I see Terrence Bud Crawford, I see those who have reached pinnacles of their sport because they fell in love with the process of becoming great. And when you have someone who has the physical tools, when you have someone who has the hunger and the drive, you have someone who has the love of their craft, where they fall in love with it, you see great things. And one of the things that I've loved about Terrence Crawford from the moment I started watching him, and I want to say probably when he moved up, I I followed him when he fought Postal. But then when he fought Horn, I think that was a turning point. I liked him against Postal. I went back and saw the Gamboa and his other fights. But when he fought Horn, one, I didn't like Horn because of what he did to Manny Pacquiao and just roughing him up, fighting that dirty style of boxing and got away with it fighting in Australia and all that. But when he came in and he dominated Horn, he reminded me of guys who come in and it isn't just about confidence, but it's about that they have something internal to prove that's greater than any opposition that you're putting in front of them. And they're not there to just win. They're there to dominate you. I remember Kobe back in the day, he used to say, every day that you take off from working out, from training, is a day that your opposition is putting in work to be better than you. And he said the reason why he didn't take days off is because he understood that if he was going to get to where he wanted to get to, if he was going to prove what he had to prove inside of him, he had to have the mindset that there was a greater monster that he was trying to face or preparing to face than you could ever present. I don't know if you ever watch anime. There's this one on Netflix called Baki, right? Baki Hanma, right? And he's got his dad is called the ogre, and he's preparing to fight him. And how he prepares is he actually imagines these monsters that represent what his father could potentially be. Right? He's imagining dinosaurs. He's imagining almost alien predators, a praying mantis that's elevated to the size of 8 to 10 feet tall. He's fighting a fight that you don't realize he's fighting. And when you're standing in front of him, you think it's you and him, and it's not. This is what Terrence Bud Crawford is. That he's fighting something. He's probably fighting demons that he had at 8, 9 years old. Moms is out there telling kids that they can't whoop her son, and he's fighting. He's probably fighting childhood trauma, right? That he's just like, you know what? I got something that I gotta defeat inside of me, and he's working it out against you. And every day that he's training against that monster. And so when you see these moments, what they remind you of is you have the ability to to create an environment for yourself that allows you to grow and develop however you believe you need to accomplish whatever it is that you decide you need to do. And that goes for anything, absolutely anything. Whatever you believe that you need to prepare for, when you buy into it and you trust yourself through this process, you can do absolutely anything. Absolutely anything. And what we see from Terrence Crawford is that the image of what he has up here, of what he needs to accomplish, has always been greater than any opponent that he's seen. It didn't matter who was in there with him. And I think that what this fight does against Canelo Alvarez is it reframes how we've seen his entire career. It reframes how we even think about guys like Errol Spence, right? Like after he demolishes Errol Spence, all of a sudden now we were questioning Errol Spence instead of giving greatness to Terrence Bud Crawford. Instead of actually respecting the person who has prepared for this moment for decades, right? For decades, we want to diminish the other person because it couldn't possibly be this guy is that good. Now, I mean, but this is boxing, right? Boxing has always had its racial undertones. They've always tried to minimize certain guys of certain demographics, whether it's the Cuban fighters, whether it's African American fighters. There's always been a way in which they try to minimize the level of hard work, uh, 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 knowledge, IQ, stuff like that. And Bud Crawford has been no different. They want to talk about his killer instinct, not his extreme skill, right? Until he gets to these levels in these fights. But let me get to the topic at hand. More than anything, this is what I want to stress is that Terrence Bud Crawford has absolutely saved boxing. We have not seen a superstar who has respected the game and reset the bar, right? Like Floyd Money Mayweather, what he did. Okay, I'll put it this way. What he did by cherry picking a lot of his fights, and I'm gonna use the extreme. He wasn't quite to that extent. I'm a big Mayweather fan, but let's be clear. He waited to fight Pacquiao. He didn't go out and say, "I want to fight the best." He said, "I'm gonna fight the best on my terms and my timing, where I have the greatest advantage, so I can maximize my earning potential." It was business for him, and he made the sport less about competition and more about business. By the time Canelo Alvarez learns from Floyd, he not only makes it about business and doubles down on it not being about competition, that it then lowers the bar for everyone else. And this is what I want to talk about why Bud has saved boxing because he's raised the bar again. He said, I got this. Boxing, get on my back. There's a reason why you got that video of what's his name? Turk Al Sheikh, right? The man who's been bankrolling boxing and has been a major part of rejuvenating the sport of boxing. But there's a reason why he said to Bud, finish the job. Finish the job. Because for boxing to be great, for it to return to its former lore, it has to be competitive. Because the reality is people, as much as you can say you have the casual fan, right, who just goes because it's a big name person and it's a festive event. There also has to be a dynamic where once you tune in, you're tuning into something that's entertaining. And it's not entertaining seeing a guy who's nowhere near the talent level of the other guy that he's facing just get beat up, just get mollywopped, or you can visibly tell guys are not taking this seriously. You can tune in and be like, there is nothing here that draws me in. And when I've watched a lot of these fights, whether it's been uh, um, what's his name, the heavyweight. Forgive me, I'm not so deep into boxing where I got everybody memorized and all that stuff. Uh, the dude who fought Deontay Wilder and beat him twice. Anyways, when I watched him fight, or I saw Andy Ruiz, or I saw Anthony Joshua, you didn't see guys who had just this love for the sport, guys who wanted to go in there and prove that they were the best. You had guys who were just maybe really good, really, and I don't want to take anything away from those guys. But when I watched, I didn't see competition. I saw people who were cashing out, really good players, almost like if you see a veteran player go to a lower level basketball team, and they're just sitting there and they're like, "Hey, you know what? I'm on this team that's not going to win. I'm going to get my points, and then it's going to be what it is, right? I'm kind of going to coast this. I'm not really trying to push my team to win. I'm not mad that we're losing. I'm just going to get mines, continue to get paid, and keep it pushing." Now I know in a sport like the NBA basketball, you got 82 game seasons. It's a marathon, whereas boxing is a one stop shop. It's one fight. But as I say that we've seen a lot of fighters over these past years under this Canelo reign, right, where you didn't see the competition. You didn't see guys test themselves, and even then, when you saw a Deontay Wilder try to do that, he didn't have the skill to back it up. He had the power. He had the drive. He had the will, the fortitude, but he didn't have the process. He didn't have the pro he was missing a gap, a chunk that has been the difference between him being an all-time great and being great. And there's 2 different levels to that. There's 2 different levels to that, right? You could be great and not an all-time great. You could be great because of the popularity, because of the energy around you, but to be an all-time great is it's different. It's different. You know what I mean? Like if Mike Tyson was here today with this social media reign, I think people would talk about him like people unfortunately talk about Deontay Wilder. You would have more to nitpick. You would have more haters out there who just hate for the sake of hating, right? Versus if Deontay Wilder was there during Mike Tyson's time, I think we would see him more like how we see Mike Tyson. We got into the love of the competition and seeing him go out there and be this fierce fighter, right? What Terrence Bud Crawford has done is reset the bar to saying not only do you have to be great, like talented, have the tools, have the skill, but you got to have the hunger. You got to have the drive. You got to be that guy who wants to go out there and prove he's the greatest. And this is what we look at when we look at Sugar Ray Robinson, when we look at uh, um, uh, uh, Pernell Whitaker, when we look at Bernard Hopkins, when we look at uh, guys like Roy Jones, when we look at these, Muhammad Ali, when we look at Jack Johnsons and Joe Louis, we look at guys who had something inside of them. And unfortunately, in this past generation, over the past 10 years of fighters, we've lacked talent, like upper tier talent, who had something inside of them, saying, I have something to prove. Now, I do want to say I want to shout out guys who I have liked watching, like Shakur Stevenson, even Devin Haney. I mean, the Ryan Garcia thing. I just don't respect anyone who does performance enhancing drugs. Once you do that, and just like hearing his stuff, I don't even talk about him. I don't even talk about him. But it's to say that there are fighters out there who have a love for the sport, but then when the business and the promoters and all these guys got in there, it was like it just got so messy. It got so messy that you were just turned off. You were just turned off. But then there have been some great fights. There have been some great fights. Whether you're looking at guys like Usyk, whether you're looking at guys like Inoue, you're seeing great fights. Even Benavidez, right? You're seeing great fights, but no one with the cachet, no one with that like charisma, no one that you could really lock in on and say this guy is a beacon for the rest until Bud Crawford. And as much as they try to reduce him as a fighter, minimize his accomplishments, right? Like one of the things that I think has been hard for him is everyone that he's beat, they were never the same afterwards. So it was easy for people to be like, oh, that guy was never that good in the first place. But what they don't do is they don't give credit to who that guy was before they went into the ring with Bud Crawford. Because who those guys were before they went into the ring with Bud Crawford, they were the monsters of their division. They were the champions. They were the guys that nobody wanted to see. They were the guys who were the boogeyman. They were the guys who were taking out everybody and they were at the top. until Bud got there. Until Bud. And they didn't give him credit. And so when you watched Bud's ascension, it was slower than it ever should have been. It was more methodical in pace than it ever should have been. He should have been rising up far sooner. But the politics of boxing and stuff that turned a lot of us off was all in play. But this moment of beating Canelo Alvarez, I think it circumvents all of that. It shut all of that down. And you know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think if Bud has the rise that he had, I don't know if he ever gets this fight. I don't know if he ever gets this fight. I don't think if he hits superstardom years ago when he fights Spence, I don't think that he ever fights Canelo. I don't think Canelo ever steps into the ring with him. Right. And the thing is, and I want to get to some of the aspects of the fight that I want to break down a little bit. But let me just talk about just the social landscape of boxing. I don't think we ever see Canelo step into the ring with a Bud Crawford if he ascends as a superstar when he should have. Whether it was Gamboa or Postal, right? Like those were like huge fights that people just underplay because they were never the same after Bud. But Canelo never wanted those guys. He never wanted the athletic dog who also had a lot of skill and power and pop. Like people were all questioning Crawford if his power was going to move up. And I said, speed and accuracy equals power. Speed and accuracy equals power, right? I don't have to have the same level of one shot pop and I can knock you out just with one shot. And plus at this level, no one's getting, one shot popped and they're just laid out. No one. Because you're too good. You know how to roll with it. You see it coming. You have great preparation and stuff like that. You have good enough defense. That's how you became a champion in the first place. So nobody's getting knocked out like that in the first place. But when you have great accuracy and speed, it's going to equate to power. When each time that you take a headshot, you're not just swinging at my head, you're swinging at my temple. You're not just swinging at the side of my face, you're making sure that it hits the jaw. You're seeing the opening and you're hitting the opening. And when you watch the fight, every single time that Bud was taking a shot at Canelo, it was absolutely surgical. And this was something that I've consistently seen about Bud. It wasn't just his competitiveness, it wasn't just his preparation, it wasn't just his skill, it was his ability to break you down. It was something that I think we seen probably most specifically. I want to use the examples of Jordan and LeBron. Jordan and LeBron. Jordan, by the time that he came back after his first retirement, and he went on that second three-peat run with Pippen and Phil Jackson and Dennis Rodman and the gang, Kool Coke and them, right? Uh, Jordan became a guy who was surgical, absolutely surgical. He was gonna score 6 to 8 points a quarter, and he was gonna put you away, right? 4 quarters, right? 6 times 4, right? He's gonna get somewhere between 24 uh, uh, and 32, right? That's what he was gonna do. And then if he got himself going, he's gonna get up to 36 easily, right? Easily. Plus, and I should say, he was gonna get his 6 to 8 baskets, not counting free throws. That's how he went from 24 to 32, or he's gonna get to 36, 38, 40 because of the free throws. But it was surgical. He knew exactly what he wanted to do when he was gonna do it. Then you have LeBron, the master calculator. He's reading you in real time. He has the ability to break down what's taking place around him in real time, knowing not just from the preparation standpoint of watching film, but also in real time, observing what's taking place based upon what he knows you to be, that he's been studying for a long time. I guarantee Bomac and Bud been studying Canelo for years. For years. The moment they even saw Canelo on their radar, they already broke him down and knew exactly what they were going to need to do. But to come in there with a game plan that can also make the adjustments in real time, it creates an extreme disadvantage for any opponent because you can have the best game plan. But if the other guy can make shifts and changes while you're trying to execute, your game plan no longer fits. Now, this is something I saw from Canelo that I was worried about for a long time. Is that Canelo is very, you know, I think it was Hagler that said it. He said it's hard to keep that dog when you're sleeping in silk sheets. It's hard to have that hunger when you go home and you got your personal chef. It's hard to keep that drive to be great when you have things laid out for you. And what I was observing from Canelo, I didn't see the guy who had something to prove. I saw a guy who was getting paid $150 million. He looked like the fattened calf being led to the slaughter. He was fattened up and he was ready. And I think he accepted that. If I'm honest with you, I think Canelo accepted he was likely going to go into a fight he probably wasn't going to win. Like, I think he believed in himself. But I think that in order to believe in himself, he had to turn off a part of his brain that said, I could lose. He didn't have something inside of him that was bigger than Bud Crawford. Crawford, however, had something far bigger inside of him than Canelo Alvarez. Far bigger. And if I'm honest with you, the more I watched Canelo, the more I followed his career, the less impressed I was. And it was something that Roy Jones said. He said, when you're a great fighter and somebody gives you trouble, like a Arslan Lara, you're supposed to solve that. Okay, you scraped out the win, but great fighters are like, I don't want to scrape out a win. I don't want anybody thinking that this guy could have beat me. I want to face him again, just so I can prove to y'all that he was never an issue for me. Right? I want to make sure I solve that, check him off, not let me just skate away. And what I saw was Canelo began to pick a certain type of fighter. And this is my whole thing with Triple G and all them. Canelo started picking fighters that he knew were going to stand in front of him. He didn't have to improve his footwork. He didn't have to increase his foot speed, even hand speed. He didn't have to solve the issues that Lara presented. And then when he did fight guys who did, it was always something, Trout was older, and that whole live fight scoring that made him fight a different style and he got caught. But Trout was giving him work. And then by the time he fought someone like, Danny Jacobs, Danny Jacobs was, uh, he was just happy to be there and make money. As was Jamel Charlo, who was absolutely shameful. And I watched that fight and I looked at Charlo and I said, you had everything you needed to beat him and you never went for it. Same thing with Jacobs. Never went for it. And when I saw Bud, I said, Bud is going to go for it. Every moment he's in the ring, he's going for it. Every exchange, he wants to win. Every round, he wants to win. Right? Even when I saw that fifth round, I looked at that round. I said, "Oh, he decided to rest that round. He decided to rest." And it's funny because I was talking with my boy about it, and I said, Bud revealed something about himself against Errol Spence, and he said in this moment he had like this exchange, and he's on the inside, and he picks up Errol Spence, and he moves him, and he moves him, and he kind of throws him against the ropes a little bit, and he said it was for no other purpose, but I just wanted to feel him. I wanted to feel his body. I wanted to feel what he was as a man, as a human being. I wanted to know what his density was, because once you pick up another man, it doesn't matter what. Once you pick him up and move him, how you feel about him immediately becomes reduced to eye level, at least. If not, if you can lift him, by the time you lift another man in front of you, you already think I can knock him out. If I could pick you up like I do my kids, right? I'm not worried about you. Mentally, I'm not worried about you. And I said there's going to come a point in this fight where he's going to want to pick up Canelo. He's going to want to move him. And it's going to be for no other purpose but that mentally, once he moves him, he's going to look at him differently. How he's going to fight is going to be different. Now, I was kind of impressed because I felt like I saw Canelo do that first, try to move Bud. But immediately I said, "Oh, that's just gonna trigger Bud to do it right now." And sure enough, he did. He actually did it twice in the fight, where he just lifted Canelo and shifted him. And I think what that did was immediately it was like Canelo was being reduced in size in front of Bud from round to round, moment to moment. I think Bud had the game plan. He understood who he was. I got the reach. I can control the range. Far more athletic. I have more explosiveness to get in and out. I can negate a lot with my hand speed, with my accuracy. Um, and he already knew how to beat a Canelo. How did he know? Because he fought Spence. Because he fought Spence. Heavy-handed fighter who was going to come forward, who was going to attack his body and try to break him down. Well, he realized, hey, you know what? If I use my speed and athleticism and I constantly put you in a position where you have to reach and you have to lunge for me. And he already talked about he developed that short kind of pistol over the top. As soon as you lunge in, he's stepping back and giving you the right over the top. Just bow, land that. And once he can land that, he negates even your lunge. Now he negates you throwing those haymakers to just go for it. The thing about Errol Spence is he just kept going for it and he kept running into it, and then that just set him up. And next, he's rocked. For Canelo, it just made Canelo hesitate. It just made him hesitate. And so when you saw this matchup, what you saw was the whole styles make fights. This was a horrible style for Canelo that he never solved. That Roy Jones was talking about. That he never solved. He never got in the ring with the guy who had those tools and had those skills, right? And I'm not saying they had to be Bud Crawford. I'm saying he avoided, and let's just be 100% clear, Canelo avoided that style of fighter for the majority of his career. And that was to his detriment. By the time he gets into this fight with Bud Crawford, he was completely unprepared. Completely unprepared. He did not have uh, an internal unconscious understanding of how to fight this fight to win. He was fighting like he was fighting Kovalev. He was fighting like he was fighting, I'm not even going to say Caleb Plant, because I think Caleb Plant was just somebody he knew was going to wear down because he didn't have cardio. So he said, okay, I'll take whatever punishment. I just know the moment you slow down, I'm going to be able to drop you. And he did. But he didn't want to fight. I forget my man's name. He was fighting at what, 168, 160, 168. Um, Athletic fighter. I really feel bad for him because he got iced out for so long. By the time he did get his fight against Benavidez, I think he was just too far gone, and he had just fallen out of love with the sport. I forget his name, but either way, he just stayed away from those athletic fighters. And that was to his detriment. He had no wherewithal of how to close the distance, how to get underneath that jab, how to get into the body and keep him up against the ropes. He didn't know how to um, negate the jab. He didn't have the framework, the internal framework, because you've competed against this style before, to say this is how I'm going to take this away. He could not take anything away from Bud. And as the rounds went on, you just saw Bud take away more and more and more and more. By the end of this fight, I had Canelo winning 2 rounds that were clear. There was maybe one or two other rounds I was like, maybe, like maybe you can try to feel it out. But the reality was, if you and I was telling my partner this when we was watching it, I was like, man, if you take away their names, take away Canelo's name, take away Bud's name, take away the commentators, and you just watched the fight. This is almost a shutout. It was almost a shutout. Outside of that fifth round, and I think Canelo had another round later on that I was like, okay, that was a clear round that I would give to Canelo. Outside of that, outside of that, I think it was a shutout. It wasn't close. I think people, because we know who Canelo is, we gave him body shot points that I don't think we would give to average fighters. right? If somebody was lighting you up top and you land a big body shot, most of the time they're going to give you more credit for the higher activity and shots to somebody's head versus the lower activity and a power shot to the body. But because it's Canelo, we all go, oh, we know what's coming. But that's because that's worked against a certain style of fighter, right? That has worked against a certain style of fighter. I don't think that it was as effective as they were giving him credit for. And when I saw that going up top, when he was landing against Bud, that Bud could eat it and come right back. Not just eat it and come right back in terms of absorb the punching power and be able to counter immediately, but it was countering in a way that he was like, I'm not going to give you an inch. Even when you think you landed, you're not going to see nothing from me that says it was something at all. Whether I'm sticking my tongue out, and whether I'm coming back quickly with a shot to counter you. Uh, Bud Crawford, every step of the way, gave him nothing. Gave Canelo nothing, and Canelo had nothing to counter it. Had absolutely nothing to counter it. It was a beautiful fight. I love Teddy Atlas at the end of the fight where he was like, "This is the sweet science of boxing." What we saw was a masterclass. Terrence Bud Crawford put on a masterclass against Canelo Alvarez. And do I think Canelo at any point in time ever was going to beat Terrence Bud Crawford? I have to say, absolutely not. There's never a point in Canelo's career ever where he would have been able to beat Bud. You could take the Canelo who was in there with Floyd. He was never going to be able to beat Bud at that same time. After he beat Kovalev, after he beat Triple G couldn't beat Terrence Bud Crawford. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. Triple G, look, I get it. He was a beast for his time, but if you look at that division at that time, who were the greats he was fighting? Right? You know, I seen Canelo avoid Ward, avoid Benavidez, avoid even Spence when he could have fought him. He avoided the Charlos for the longest. Um, Man, I forget my man's name. It was like Booby or something like that. Um, what's his name? Really athletic fighter. I forget his name, but it's to say that anybody that might have been a threat, Canelo avoided a real threat. And I think that what that told me was that you're not a competitor of this ilk, of this ilk. Like when you see Jordan, there was never anybody that he walked into a space of competition where he conceded anything, conceded anything. And what I watched the other night with Terrence Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, it was just two different levels of greatness. Canelo's a great fighter. Terrence Bud Crawford is one of the all-time greats. That's the difference. That is the difference. That is the difference right there. Terrence Bud Crawford said, I'm going to beat any style. I'm going to beat any style. Any type of fighter that you put before me, I will figure out. Canelo has said, I'm just going to make sure a certain style is in front of me. And then I'm going to master a certain style that can always beat that style. Why this saves boxing is because it resets the bar. The bar has been reset. The bar is officially reset. Now we start looking at guys like Shakur. Now we start looking at guys who are willing to get the belt, to go after the best, right? Even a Devin Haney, which is something I respected about his career, even though he needed to learn, and get some better defense and stuff like that. Even if you never have the power, I don't care if you don't have the power. I don't care. Not everybody needs to be Tank, but do you compete? Do you compete? And that's what I think that Terrence Bud Crawford has done for boxing. Is he made it about competition. Now I hope it stays on Netflix. A point that my boy Patrick was making. He was like, something that boxing has forgotten is that in order to continue to rein in the casual fan, you got to have free fights. You got to have free fights. Whether it's a Monday night, Friday night, you got to have consistent free fights that keeps people engaged. And then when you have these big fights, has to be ultra competitive. But that's also what you get from the free fights. Guys who are just competing to have an opportunity. And when you show the journey of guys in those free fights where it's guys that you may not have heard of, but you can track them and you can see them competing, I think that brings back the beauty and the love of this sport of boxing. Something that when you see a Jake Paul, you just don't want any part of because you don't see the competition. You don't see someone who's mastered their craft and has said, "I'm dedicating myself to this." It's become a bit of a circus, and I think that that's what Floyd introduced was the circus, even though he never cheated the game. He never cheated the sport. Canelo, he cheated the sport by cherry picking, but he didn't have a circus, if that makes sense. But then the rest of the guys, because the bar was set to say, hey, you can cheat the game or you can have a circus. Now you have so many guys who are either a circus or they're cheating the sport. What's good, Sandra? Yo, what's good? Now we deep in the offseason, huh? Being late, bro. See, Missy. Yeah, yeah. Hey, I've been good, man. I've been good, man. Um, waiting for some motivation. But this fight between Bud and Canelo was all the motivation I needed, if I'm honest with you. This was competition. This was competition at its finest. I love competition. And what I saw with Terrence Bud Crawford, he saved boxing for me because he has been the dude to bring us back to what we love about sport. When you see two individuals, two teams, two anything, they get between the lines, they are giving you their best and they're coming to win, whether it's track and field, whether it's, I don't care if it's golf, I don't care if it's badminton. Like I was one of those competitors growing up, like a Bud Crawford. I wanted to win at everything, everything. It could be spades, it could be Uno, right? Like I've had relationships fall apart because of how bad I beat somebody at Uno and I was trash talking. It's just how I'm built, right? I want to win at everything. Yeah, I watch boxing. Um, no, I love it, but I came into boxing late. I came into boxing late. I'm just responding to Sandro in the chat. I came into boxing late, but I've loved it. I've loved everything that I've seen about it. But I only love people who love it in return. Right. This is the reason why I don't really talk about or really respect what's his name who went in there with Deontay Wilder, uh, the British dude. I don't even really care about him because he didn't love the sport. He didn't love the sport. And then Deontay never really had the skill. He didn't get those early stages, of development. It's almost like when you see a guy who comes into the sport late, that you just tell there's certain things that they just didn't get that they should have gotten earlier. All this to say is Terrence Bud Crawford, what he's done for boxing is he's reset the bar, and now everybody has to measure up to that. And I think what that means for the sport is that from this point forward, that's how we are going to assign greatness, right? Jake Paul is no longer somebody that has validity because we know that you're not a competitor. We know that you don't care about the sport. I don't want to see you fight Tank. I don't care. I don't care about you fighting Tank. I don't even care who wins because it's a dog and pony show. When I turn into boxing, I think that we're gonna see from this point forward, you're gonna see the Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson. You're gonna see the Devin Haney fight, who I actually wouldn't be shocked if he ends up fighting bro who just went the distance with Tank a Lamont Roach, right? Like I wouldn't be shocked if you see that type of fight made, right? Where it's like, okay, Roach, Are you willing to go up to 140? Right? Are you willing to go and make this fight because we want to see the best fight the best? Right? Tank, we're gonna need to see you either fight in a way or you're gonna have to move up and start fighting T.O. and Shakur and them. And you're probably too small to do that. So you're gonna have to fight in a way. Right? Like it's only about the best fighting the best. And I think that when you see a Dana White coming on in alongside of Turk, uh, I don't know his full name and all that stuff. I ain't got those, those things memorized. I save that mental, stuff for basketball, right? But it's to say that, Sheik, you see him partnering next to Dana White, and Dana White's all about competition and leveraging competition, right? If you're the best, you're gonna fight the best, and we're gonna see that you're the best. And if you lost, we ain't tripping. We still know that you're right there with the best. And I think that how they're going to structure it now is you're going to see this smooth line transition of competition. You're going to see it. No more promoters getting in the way of competition. No more dog and pony show. Fooling the novice fan to think that a fight is more competitive than it really is. We're going to know, like from this point forward, Canelo almost has to fight a Benavidez. He almost has to fight a David Benavidez because we won't respect him fighting anybody else. They had that whole Mbili versus who was it, Martinez or something like that. Um, I think Canelo would fight either of them. Mbili does have a belt, but I think that we won't really respect it because we understand how he's going to beat him. He's like, okay, we know that there's a skill gap that's huge. It's just huge. Which boxer you enjoy watching right now? Or do you just enjoy watching sport in general? Um, I like Shakur. I like what I've seen from Shakur, especially in his last fight. The one thing we asked from Shakur was one, make it more entertaining, but we actually want to see you engage more. Yes, you have the sweet science down. Your defense is impeccable. You do a great job managing the distance, uh, leading with your jab. You're very surgical, but your output is so minimal. It's almost like watching a defensive minded basketball team, like the Pistons back in the day. Where they had Ben and Rashid, and Chauncey and them and Rip and Tayshawn and Lindsey Hunter. It's like, they're probably going to score only about 82 points, but they're going to keep you from scoring more than 75. And that's how they're going to beat you every single time. That has been what Shakur has been like. Um, we asked him to increase his volume. Can you get to 90 to 100 points? Right? Like that's more entertaining. It's more enjoyable. But I think Shakur is somebody that, as I've seen him increase that output and show, like, nah, I can bang and I can war and I can still be me. I don't have to come outside of myself. I'm just going to improve and master my ability to put more punches together, put more combinations together. And so I think in that regards, I think Shakur is kind of that next. He's that next guy. I also think David Benavidez is somebody like that as well. David Benavidez to me is somebody who has bought into what it means to fall in love with the process of being great. Yeah, Canelo's a monster, but he's. I'm not gonna say he's a monster. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not gonna say Canelo's a monster. He's a great fighter, but he's a great fighter against a certain style. He's a great fighter against a certain style, and that's who he continues to put in front of him. And we're gonna know based upon who he fights next over the next 2, 3 fights if he's really about being great. Because when you're handpicking guys who are going to stand right in front of you, um, or have clear weaknesses and deficiencies that you're going to eventually be able to exploit while avoiding people who are greater fighters in the same weight division, I think that's when we start looking at you and like, we get what you are. So I wouldn't say Canelo's a monster. I think Canelo is a monster to certain types of fighters. Slow footed, they come straight forward, easy targets for him to load up and land big shots. But nobody who's able to put punches together and then get out the way. If you can do that, you present and stay defensively responsible. You present a huge problem for Canelo, and he's never been able to figure that out. So I wouldn't call him a monster. Um, But I think that from this point forward, a lot of these bigger fights get made. I think we see Boots Ennis. I love it. Uh, Turk Sheik, what's his name? When he told Boots, he was like, "Boots, man, you haven't shown me anything against anybody legitimate that I would pour money out there for you." He's like, "I'm not spending money like you're like I don't know what y'all think." That's basically what he was saying. I don't know what y'all thought I was. Maybe y'all thought I was one of these other dudes who can be easily fooled. If you're not making a great fight, I'm not spending any money on you. If you are not somebody who's going to be worth me watching, I'm not spending money on you. And they thought they was going to just do whatever with him. And he was like, nah, bro. Nah, I don't know. You thought the shit was sweet. That ain't what this is. You know what I mean? So all that's to say, I think what we continue to see from boxing is guys have now had another bar that they have to measure up to. It ain't about putting on a dog and pony show. It ain't about having a spectacle and a circus around you, right? Like the Charlos was doing, and everybody, a Tank Davis and stuff like that. Guys who are just, with the antics and all that stuff. It ain't about that no more. It ain't about the guys who also want to cheat the sport, like a Teofimo or Thurman already lost his career doing that stuff, man. Um, Guys who don't put in the work. Now the guys who are going to shine the most are the guys who put in the work because those guys are going to get promoted to these huge platforms and fights. And that's something that I'm excited to see. That's something that I'm excited to see is competition. Guys who are showing up and saying, I want to show that I'm the best. I'm willing to prove it. And I think that that's what we're going to see from boxing from this point on, from this point forward. I would actually love to see. Ooh, could we get a David Benavidez versus Usyk? Could we get a Benavidez Usyk fight? Like that could be $100 million fight. I think the Shakur Teofimo Lopez could be a let's say 60 to $80 million fight for sure. Can we get a Tank Davis versus Inoue fight? Right, Inoue may have to get to that 135, 130. You know, Tank may have to take a risk. And I don't know if what's his name, still has anything left in him. Um, what's his name? The Ukrainian brother. Uh, I forget his name. He has a lot of speed. Um, I don't know if he's able to get in there with Tank or Usyk. But those are the fights that are there to be made because those dudes are the best of the best, and there's no more avoiding the best. No one's what this fight has done is it said we're no longer paying for guys to fight dump trucks. And that's what my man Big Main back in the day used to call them dump trucks. Guys that was just suckers out there. Just like, all right, you don't have anywhere near the talent. Why are you in there? Those fights are no longer going to get made. Period. They're not going to get shown on the biggest stage. And once you set that precedent, everyone else has to fall in line. And I think with Dana White there, you're going to see streamlined that line of competition where you are based upon who you're beating and the performances that you're putting on. That's who we're going to see you as, and that's how the rest of the narratives created are going to have to follow. No more the Stephen A. Smiths and the ESPNs who could be manipulated to try to promote somebody for the sake of maximizing profit, even if they're just a dog and pony circus or they're cheating the game. But you can make money off of them. That no longer becomes what this sport is. And when this shift happens, I think we see boxing ascend. I think it ascends. It's going to be greater than UFC for sure, because I think people also like to see the skill. I think some things that are lost with UFC is that it's so quick, high pace that it's not something that is aesthetically appealing as much as it is like visceral carnage that uh evokes that intensity and that stress mechanism of like ooh versus like woo, right? Like there's a big difference in that. There's a big difference, and I think that that's where boxing is going to be able to ascend past UFC. I think we're going to see boxing probably ascend past baseball. I don't think it'll necessarily catch football and basketball, but it'll now become an aesthetically appealing while also having the level of competition. And now the narratives will follow, right? Now all of a sudden you're going to have to see Stephen A. Smith no longer be the whole, pundit who goes out there and just follows who he's being told to hype up. He's actually going to have to learn. You see Max Kellerman reintroduced, right? We knew that Max Kellerman always had the boxing acumen, right, over Stephen A. Smith, who just kind of like was just kind of a loudmouth for promotions. Um, and so we see this level of competition. Everything's going to fall in line, right? Everything's going to fall in line, and this is why Bud Crawford has saved boxing. He has absolutely saved the sport of boxing. And I can't wait to see where this goes from here. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I think it's going to be a thing of beauty. Um, from this point on, if I'm Bud, I want to see Bud retire. The only fight that I would want to see is maybe him against Charlo, him against Jamel Charlo. Like, I think that there's been a lot of, beef, and there's been a lot of real bad blood. I think he also brings out the best in Jamel Charlo. I think Jamel Charlo, especially with how things are shifting with Turk Al, like I think guys are going to fall in line, and you're going to see that bring out the best in guys who stick around in the turn of this new era. Those who stick around are going to have to fall in line, and that's going to work out for the betterment of competitive boxing. And you may see the best of Jamel Charlo that may actually be competitive, right? I think it'll be closer to what we saw Bud against Madrimov, where it doesn't look like this stellar performance from Bud. He still wins because he's got the mind, but because Jamel Charlo has the athleticism, the size, some speed, more pop and power, he'll make Bud hesitate more. He'll make him take less chances. But I think what we'll see eventually is Bud just figure him out. Because I don't see Jamel Charlo necessarily being able to figure out Bud. He just has more tools to work with. And that was something that Canelo just never had to really compete against Bud, right? Because the big thing was just like power. But then you were like, well, what if Bud's power transfers? But I said speed plus accuracy equals power. So it transferred, right? So then you say, okay, well, Charlo's not going to have the power advantage. It might be neutral there, but he's still going to have speed and athleticism, something that Canelo didn't have to close that gap. He didn't have that ability. Now, I also don't think Charlo's going to have the ability to cut off the ring in the way that Canelo can, but I think he can work on those things and tweak those things, and then when in doubt, he can use his athleticism and the reach and his size to be able to also close the gap. But I think outside of that fight, I don't really see another fight out there. I don't think Boots, shoot. If I'm Turk Al, if I'm honest with you, I would have Boots fight uh Jamel Charlo at 154, straight up. And the winner of that gets Bud. The winner of that fight gets Bud. Like Jamel and Boots, the ascending versus the stagnated and kind of fallen out of view of most fans. Jamel Charlo has a chance to recapture some momentum and get back on the main stage. Boots has a chance to make that jump and prove he deserves to be there, right? That would be a solid $50 million fight, $60 million fight on Netflix, right? And you line that type of fight up with, let's say, a card like Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson, right? Maybe a David Benavidez and I mean, I don't think Usyk goes down the face of Benavidez, but I wouldn't be shocked if he does. I wouldn't be shocked if he does, especially if you give him the money to do it, right? If you make that a $150 million fight and you offer Usyk 80 million to step into the ring and Benavidez, 70 million, I think both of them will move up for that fight and it'll be a great fight. Got the hand speed of David Benavidez. You've got the ring IQ of an Usyk. Um, I think it would be a beautiful fight, just aesthetically beautiful fight. But hey, I gotta get off. I just had to talk about this fight. I was gonna save it for the morning. I was supposed to do it this morning, but I didn't get a chance to. Either way, boxing is back. I think it's been ascending, but this has reset the bar. Bud Crawford has reset the bar. It's no longer about the circus. It's no longer about being able to cheat the game, cherry pick, and all that stuff. It's been reset. All the clowns, all the guys who were just antics, all the guys who maybe didn't have the same skill, who could get away with, being less, but be promoted in a certain way where you thought they were more, but if you really followed them, you understood they weren't. I think now all that stuff gets aligned. The narratives actually get wrapped around promoting the fighters who actually don't cheat the game, who are going to compete, who train, show you a lot of skill, and you can become excited about great boxing again. Bud Crawford makes you excited about great boxing competition again. And I think that's what the future holds for boxing. But as always, it's your man 100 grand. Ross with the Rock Never Stops. If you enjoyed this live video, definitely smash the like button for me. Hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. I usually do much more basketball talk. If there's a great boxing match, I will try to talk about it more. Um, but as always, y'all have a great night. Remember, no matter what you're doing out there in life, if you don't cheat the process, if you can fall in love with the process of becoming great, you can become great at anything. You can become great at anything. Just don't cheat the process. With that, I'm out of here. You'll have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your summer into the fall. I hope you are staying rooted with your family, taking care of yourself, and enjoying this life to the fullest. We'll get at y'all next time. Peace.